Alright, hello gamers, welcome to a most unlucky episode of the Cosmic Campfire. For today, you see, we're going to be reading an old tale called Misfortune.GB, the tale of a game supposedly hidden inside of other games for the original Game Boy. Now, let's get right into it. Let me get on that music and let's go. Misfortune is an obscure game for the original Game Boy. Since no known hard copies or ROMs exist, all known information on the game is derived from personal accounts and a scant assemblage of screenshots. The game does not contain any credits. Whoever created it has been yet to discover to this day, and the few people who have experienced it consider it to be one of the scariest video games ever made. Given its age and cult following among rare horror game enthusiasts, it's entirely possible that authors of widely known creepypastas such as Sonic.exe and Lavender Town Syndrome drew inspiration from Misfortune. Beginning of the game. The player controls what appears to be a young boy in a strange, gothic building. After briefly exploring their environment, they are confronted by a malevolent being. Despite the character never identifying itself, some people, citing notable similarities, claim that it may be a representation of Baphomet, Beelzebub, or even the devil. Upon meeting the mysterious creature, a dialogue box will appear with the text, "I exist within the very fabric of reality. Do you want to challenge me?" This is followed by a yes or no choice. Should the player choose yes, the being replies, "Then let's begin." Gameplay is as the player is then transported to a series of maze-like rooms, each filled with pit drops, locked doors, keys, and traps. The objective is to progress through each room by either reaching the stairs to the next level or solving a puzzle. This can include answering riddles or choosing correct doors or pathways. The most well-known example consists of a level where 4 small cabins are shown on screen. A dialogue box will appear that reads, "Choose wrong and misfortune will befall your loved ones. Are you ready to play?" Should the player make a mistake at any point through the game, the screen will cut to black before showing a more detailed image of the demon, along with a dialogue box reading, "I am God here," in what appears to be blood-styled writing. Rumours pertaining to the game's alleged harmful side effects began to surface on the internet around the late 1990s. Players claimed to have begun experiencing ongoing depression and dread shortly after seeing the game over screen. Once prominent members of online forums who shared such claims are thought to have died or disappeared when they suddenly became inactive without any warning. Heated discussion soon dominated these forums for some time, but the mystery never seemed to get any closer to being solved. Some wrote the whole thing off as a tasteless practical joke. Others believed that viewing the image of the evil character after losing really can cause the player to experience misfortune as the game's antagonist promised. Soon, people began to speculate that the eerie soundtrack of the game was the cause. Speaking of the soundtrack, the music in Misfortune consisted of deep, fuzzy tones and off-key melodies. The game had a remarkably unsettling soundtrack overall, despite its composition being limited to the 8-bit Game Boy sound bank. The game over screen, especially, had erratic, almost nauseating music accompanied by a very high frequency. Rumor has it that this track could somehow influence moods and thought patterns. Of all tracks available in the game, only the theme that plays in the first meeting with a demonic entity can be found on the internet today. Now, I happen to have the YouTube link for that supposed piece of soundtrack. Let's give it a brief little listen before we move on to the next part of the story. I'm going to be quiet so you can hear it for a few seconds. It's only about a minute long, minute and a half even, but I won't play the whole thing. Alright, well I think that's quite enough. See, it's just the same little thing getting looped over and over again. Let's put back on the old chateau music from Pokemon Diamond and Pearl that we had before. Alright, now onto the availability. It says here, searching for playable ROMs or cartridges of the game online is futile because none exist. In fact, most of those who have played it hadn't sought it out, but rather stumbled upon it by accident. According to first-hand accounts, certain copies of various Game Boy titles contain Misfortune in its entirety. The means for accessing it through these games vary, but typically involve exploiting glitches or using cheating devices. Although some have detailed their steps for getting the game to run, attempts by others using the same methods have always failed. Another common observation was that many of the sprites in Misfortune had been copied from its host games. Misfortune is actually known to be integrated in the following titles: The Legend of Zelda: Link's Awakening, Pokemon Red, Spud's Adventure, Butchie Carrot, and Atelier Marie. Closing thoughts. For this section, I'm going to be speaking to you a lot less impartially and a lot more personally. It's important that you read it. Now, is the game really cursed? Does a spectre really hide within and snare the innocent in its deadly game? Who knows? What I do know is that the game definitely exists. I also know what it can do. I've never played it myself, you see, but I knew someone who did. A good friend of mine, actually. We were closer than brothers, and we told each other everything. He was the most enthusiastic, outgoing guy I ever met. And like me, he was really into video games. Sure enough, one day he told me that he'd found a spooky new side game hidden in Pokemon. He showed it to me, and even back then, it gave me an odd feeling. Though, to be fair, I was always easily scared. Soon after, he started talking less and less. Later, he'd either ignore my calls or tell me he was sick and busy when I invited him out. He became something of a recluse. I did still sometimes get to see him at high school, but he rarely spoke and snapped at me when I pried too much over why he was acting in such a way. About a month later, before he got off the train after school, he said goodbye for the first time in weeks. I'll never forget the look he gave me that day. He was the macho, nothing gets to me type of guy, and he always masks his emotions really well. But in that moment, he had a face filled with grief, like he was about to cry. He made me promise him one thing before he left, that I never play that game. That was the last time we spoke. The next morning, they found his scratched and bloody corpse hanging from his disassembled weight machine. I don't want to read what this part says, but basically he uses it to strangle himself with the weight cord of some kind. That was it. The case was closed. Personally, I don't believe that's what really happened. If you are a collector, or have just heard the legend and want to experience the game for yourself, you should reconsider. Even if you deny the existence of demons and curses, the misfortune that will befall you is very real. You have been warned. Original author? Unknown. Originally uploaded on the 3rd of December, 2012. Well, I have to say that was really interesting. I think the concept of some malicious person, perhaps at the factory they make the cartridges in, sneaking their mysterious evil video game inside of other games is really interesting. It makes a lot more sense to say something like that. It could be a genuine haunted game. The character in the story is doubting the possibility of that, but not denying it. It could be that the demon is real and is spreading misfortune through possessing games. It could be some sort of, like I said, some sort of malicious employee at the game studios or game factories. And I think that's neat. That we don't really know why it is, but if the story were real, then there is this game out there that causes people a bit of harm, and you would run into it without looking for it. But only on Game Boy. Now, I believe that there's also a game recreation, like a fan game made that turns Misfortune.GB into a real non-cursed video game. I would be perfectly happy to make a video documenting a playthrough of that, even. However, I want to make sure there's interest in it first, I might do it eventually myself anyway, but I will try to find the game faster if there's clear interest. But yeah, this has been delightful. Now, how about we end this off by something new? We could take a look at the comments on this creepypasta wiki page. 5 out of 10. No, this isn't real. At least I can't find any evidence of it. I guess it isn't as cliched as some video game creepypastas. How have I not read this before? It's got tons of comments. People talking about how it could have been uploaded. I'd win. Okay, that's funny. I'd win. The first picture of Misfortune on this page reminds me of Kimiko. The demon looks cute. Cute demon. How can I take this demon seriously when it's the most precious thing in existence? For real though, I hate to be mean, but the demon in this game looks like a Tamagotchi. There is a website. Apparently the website does. Yeah, it's not available. Apparently the website doesn't work. What do you think about it? Some sort of article about it supposedly being real? Perhaps we can read that later. I don't want to do that just now. I've never heard of this until now. I'm surprised that Nintendo didn't do anything about it. This evil entity is too cute to be a demon. Still a fun story. Where did all these images come from? I also found the screenshots in an old YouTube video. Okay. It's a Link's Awakening mod rather than... Okay. This looks awfully close to how the classic Pokemon games are. One has to wonder what kind of idiot would actually play something like this if they ever stumbled across it. Also, what happens if you win? Has anyone ever not suffered from this thing and actually won? What do you mean? Oh, I see. This is a joke. Yeah, it's a creep. Has to deal with it. Never would have thought me 2 years ago to completely ignore the context of... Okay. Very funny. Well, I do like the number of comments that were just saying the devil thing is just really, really cute. That's kind of funny. Now, I don't feel like looking through more of the comments, but I like the idea of this comment review section being a little fun thing to wrap up at the end of a story after my own personal thoughts. There wasn't too much serious discussion about how good the story was, just calling the demon cute today. But perhaps I'll be able to find points of agreeing or disagreeing with my own opinions on future tales. For now though, this has been a wonderful campfire. You can put away your marshmallows now because it's time to get going. See ya.